is based, the story is based on the 2018 walk. Okay, so we're going to walk part of that course. And then my plan is to kind of read sections from the book that are in the locations where they take place in the book. And so while I'm reading, when you kind of drift off, that's a good sign, right? And so whatever you kind of see in that dreamy drift vision, just kind of write it down. Or if you see, if you see something else that's happening in the environment, the place while I'm reading, just write it down, and then we'll put these notes inside my book. Cool. Okay, so it'll become a permanent record of my book. What I would like you to do is to find, and maybe we can get Charles to even produce it, find a cigarette butt on the ground. Okay, so if we just run out of Osaka, it's just too damn clean, then we'll.
I can produce one too.
Oh, you guys, yeah. Between the faces of two tall bank buildings, a lone man stood with a saxophone. But he wasn't making city saxophone man sounds. Seeing a man with a sax on a city street makes me expect blasts to jazz melodies, tones, and phrases that place themselves up within the windowed skies of office buildings and assertively orient the city's other sounds in contrast to unique shapes of blown musical flows. But this guy was playing different. I can't call it his sound. He was playing something more frailly derived from within the city's own textures. He was playing in collaboration with the city's random thrusts. I walked into this canyon of buildings. As I approached, I could see that the man was obviously playing, but I couldn't hear anything or communication. He was smuggling into the city's folds. As the city's sounds would phase out, the saxophone might carry that tone of the city beyond the city's making, stretching a noise or texture out farther than the city could maintain it alone. The time, the timely inlaid with the artifice of expression, the voice and echo recharged with a desire to go on longer than urban nature has power to let it live. A squeak, a rattle, a peeling slide of pressures in decay, and then, at different points, the pure tone of utter human manufactured sound grew and blasted forth. A sound from the city would arrive and get a parasite of human art burrowing inside of it. And then the saxophone sound would rise up and up and up in a kind of power, an abrasive thrust that is human expression saying, I am here. Takes place. And just down there is where the shrine is. So the parade comes out of the shrine and it comes down this street this way. And then here's a roadside mailbox, which is kind of referenced in the book. So start on page 42. Nearing the location for the drug festival, I couldn't see or hear anything too much out of the ordinary. Turnout to the event was dying off more and more each year. I turned the corner from Inosuji onto Doshomachi. I walked towards the shrine and noticed a few clusters of participants, not much density, but still worth calling a crowd. I took a spot between two hunched over and very elderly ladies near a red curbside mailbox. One lady had a wheeled walker. It had a faded flowered seat so she could sit down whenever necessary. The little machine of emergent properties was wrought with superpowers enabling her to be more than she could be on her own. Humanity equals tool use. She had tied a large number of plastic bags to her rolling chair so it looked something like a dirty little polyvinyl cloud. She was sitting in her cloud when I came up.
By the Italian mafia.
And
then here's like the prototype of the image of the walking chair.
The frightened astronaut in the damaged pod. I slung its strap over the back of my neck, wearing the bag like a huge bib. I poured the drugs into its open space. So many shiny colors rained in and mixed together. Their plastic and foil wrappers whispered a special static-derived song as I rummaged through them. I compressed all of the empty tiger boxes and stored them in one of the blue bag's pockets. Then, I roughly sorted through the jumble of drug packages, capsules, pills, liquids, gels, powders, inhalants, and smokes. I found a shimmering purple foiled back strip of yellow tablets that seemed to be for some sort of inner ear infection. I popped out one out of its carapace and held it between my fingers. I said to it, "You are the first," and raised it towards the sky like a tiny sun. Oddly, I lost sight of the tiny yellow pill as it passed a building that had one wall painted exactly the same color. My fingers moved the pill upward and my eyes followed it. My vision lost track of it in the context of the yellow background wall. I felt a sudden panic of absence and loss, some immediate lack or existential theft. My paranoia brain flashed brightly. It also ran the length of the front. Two straight paths with a 30-centimeter chalk line running down each. Lines made of lines made of lines. Intriguing. The chalk was thick and clumped in places, but in other spots thin and barely there. As I followed the lines, I saw two groups of people. One was at the end of each white line. Each group was clustered together in focused operation around a large rolling object. Each group was moving slowly as it operated its object, so I followed and quickly caught up with them without walking too much faster. I approached and saw that each object was a large rubber tire, about a meter in diameter. Two black rubber airplane wheels, each being rolled by a team. They were printing chalk traces in their passage. Each team was made of 5 operators. 2 members balanced and rolled the wheel using a horizontal axle. One member walked backwards in front of the wheel and coated it with chalk, while the last 2 carried buckets of dry white powder and recharged the brushes that were then handed back to the backward-pacing painter. All of this effort kept the line extending. Each of the members was dressed in what looked like a flight suit of a vague national association from the World War II era, but the uniform's vibrancies were artfully drained. Looking larger than life-size bronze catcher stood. He is caught forever removing his mask as though to watch a home run ball fly over the fence of the yonder play. His gloved hand blocks the sun from his eyes. The catcher dutifully lets the moment etch defeat into his heart. He lets his heart exceed his hopes for victory and stretch out into the elastic dimensions of despair. This is Bible. This was not the portrayal of a happy time, but it was obviously a moment filled with potentials, meanings, and values. The moment's importance was made evident through the amount of effort someone made to solidify it into sculptured metal. The catcher holds on to the moment as an important one. The player who symbolically receives all that is thrown at him catches a moment when a time before became a time after. The catcher embodies the moment when a hope became a defeat. And a final piece of sculpture in the triptych stands to the right of the catcher. It is a home-face umpire. Placed near the catcher, the umpire appears to be like a priest whose presence validates the pseudo-random rules of the game. The 3 strikes, 4 balls, 4 bases, 3 outs, etc. The umpire activates vague psychic powers that are generated by the game's structures of play. The game becomes a medium of reality under the sincere enforcement of its rules.
And because no one watches, you climb down church steps on Good Friday morning to the sand, where mother waits out to sea with you, a babe in arms, into the blue, blind, deaf to your brother wailing beside her. But now you are wailing too, as you shout for him in the pool till bubbles reach you before you are once again fished out into our arms at Grandpa's funeral procession on a sun-scorched road, red seeping through white sock, a cigarette burn on the left foot she carries you on. All along, behind the funeral band with trumpet players blowing high and low, as through the years you reach for the yellow-petaled flowers on the fence, and at the next funeral, where hand after hand plucks flower after flower to dress and lay to rest, all yellow from toe to hair, Ma's own mother in her carriage to Mount Vernon Sanctuary, where you search the sky together and chase her in trails of ash and smoke. Your mouth a chalice for the hymn you sing. Mommy, Mommy, one day I'm going to be just like you. So just like you climb through yellow flowers and fences, through the aisles and ash and smoke, across old steps, sand and sea and rock, open small palms of saffron, and yellow seeps through the blue she carries you into, purple petals flying off your handmade party dress.
Nice. This is Richard Gregg's poem. We know there are muons and gluons and mesons and ruons and duons and nuons that hold reality together, but have no clue on what history's form and shape and understructure and substance is. Even the weather, whether we like it or not, plays no shaping part, only shifting and shuffling, shattering and shadowing that without shelter. How much history is comprised of particles of shopping, chips of combat, molecules of ship travel, shards of conversation, and chunks of childhood we know not. We don't even know if it is flat or round, but it is said to be layered and fitted together in ways that even if you remove some pieces, the shapes of absent parts pretty much make things that are gone still there. So if a portion is lost, the portion-shaped void left behind is enough to define the portion once more, or continue defining it, like it never left. I want to nibble or gnaw at the dimpled edge of history where the sliver I scrape or scratch away closes up and heals over, leaving no perceptible trace of what it was. Which edge, though? The back, front, side, top, bottom, or cutting? Less edge, more surface I feel, and we are jutting, marching, one way, but slipping and sliding in another, away from a dawn, towards an event, horizon, at the extent of our personal fiction with no limit in it. Well done, Richard. Thank you, Richard Gregg.
ビルジングがビルジングを借りる。暗闇から光へ。
Buildings borrow from buildings, from darkness into light.
その揺らいだうねり、くぼみと隆起、指先がなぞる、暗号化された。
My fingertips running encrypted within their tremulous pits and ridges.
暗闇を横切る、頭上の女神、光差し込む。
Overhead a goddess crossing darkness into light cut through.
天候、ピンクが。絵と暗号化されたのか、幾重の光によって差し込む。
The sunlight pink might be encrypted within, cut through by swathes of light.
長きにわたり空間を、指先が光をなぞる。奇妙な凝集する幾何学。
Decades through the space, my fingertips running into light, strange, agglomerating geometries.
建造物の花の間を、絶え間なく流れ続ける、滴る。
Endlessly streaming the drips between the architecture blossoms.
幾重の光によってジグザグに横切る頭上の女神、奇妙な凝集する幾何学。
By swathes of light that zigzag overhead a goddess crossing strange agglomerating geometries.
川は絶え間なく流れる。滴るべっとりと黄色い絵の具、青い天候の景区。
The river's arc endlessly streaming, the drips and runs of yellow paint blue lit aphorisms.
長きにわたり絶え間なく流れ続ける空間を滴るべっとりと黄色い絵の具。
Decades endlessly streaming the drips and runs of yellow paint through the space.
その揺らいだうねり、くぼみと隆起、指先がなぞる青い天候の景区。
My fingertips running blue lit aphorisms within their tremulous pits and ridges.
Sidewalking stopped at the outer edge of the space. I looked up the invisible wall of what I assumed was the sheep's limit, the line at where they would always change direction. I could see no ripple in the air or blur from some different type of vertical plane. The sheep just seemed to know how far was too far. I took another step closer and still nothing changed. Still the sheep ran up and down the empty sky and passed effortlessly through the building that loomed over that area of the city. But then, when I finally proceeded into the square and passed the invisible wall's line, entering into the quadrant of the sheep's play, I could see otherwise than when I was on the outside looking in. Within the enclosure of the sheep's world, what had been empty sky from the outside revealed itself to be a lush green world of shifting garden that floated down from above and up from below. All of this greenery was beneath the prancing trajectories of the sheep. Inside the sheep's square, I could see that they were not just leaping over invisible fences. They were playing in a vertically shifting arbor which descended to the ground level from the building's rooftop elevation and then undulated back up upon ever-shifting slopes of grassy elevation. The building was a vaporous blur amidst the ever-changing meadowland.